intermission time. It's great to get out to the movies.
To get started, do you want to do an intro of who you are, what you do?
My name is Jeremy Bolm. I sing in a band called Touché Amoré. That's been my life for the last 16 years. I also run a record label called Secret Voice, and I do a podcast called The First Ever Podcast.
This might be one of the first times we have a guest who also has their own podcast. We've had a couple, but not many. So it's fun to have someone who has this experience as well on the show.
Anytime I've had a guest on my show that also does a podcast, it is like the biggest breath of fresh air because I will say I do mine remote. It's since the beginning because it has started over the pandemic. It's just like I got stuck in my ways, or I'm just doing this through the internet. But my least favorite part about doing the show is the first 5 minutes when I get on a call with somebody, because I'm like, what's going to go wrong with the troubleshooting for them having the mic, or like, are they going to be able to get, whatever that is. That's my least favorite part. But once it gets going,
yeah, especially virtually, that would kind of stress me out. Yeah.
And it's so funny too, because there's so many times where I would never name a name, but there are times where like you would think that someone who's like maybe a musician who's like does a lot of home recordings, you're like, surely this person's going to just be A+, and they're just like, oh, I don't know how to use a microphone.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? So
it's so funny.
Yeah, you just never know what you're going to get.
So you have an album coming out in October called Spiral in a Straight Line. Can you tell me a bit about the album and also explain to me the song in there that's titled Ashby and how that came about?
Okay, so it's our 6th album, which is crazy to think about. We recorded it with a gentleman named Ross Robinson. It's our 2nd time doing a record with him. It's our first album on a new label, which is Rise BMG. So that's been kind of interesting and cool to like have that new experience. And the record as a whole, with being called Spiral in a Straight Line, a lot of it kind of deals with a feeling that I think so many of us go through, which is sort of this overwhelming sort of daily dread and anxiety that I feel like a lot of us deal with. But we have to sort of, put on a brave face and get through the day because you have maybe a job to do or someone to show up for or whatever it is that you have to do to sort of like get through your day. So that's the whole concept of like, you might be spiraling, but you still have to walk this sort of a straight line.
I like that.
Thank you. So that's the album. And then there is a song called Ashby. I'm a sucker for references, specifically references in songs. I always get so excited when I'm listening to an artist that I'm already a fan of, and then maybe I hear them reference like an actor, a director, a film, a book, another song. Maybe they use a lyric or something like that, and it pulls you in because it can either on one side of it open you up to something new, to where you're like, I've never heard of that person. I want to research that and figure out why they would use that. Or B, if you're already aware of it, it makes you as a fan be like, holy shit, like, they like this thing that I like. Mm-hmm. So I'm always a sucker for it. A lot of my favorite bands do that. So I try to sneak them in whenever I get a chance. So in these last couple of years, I've always liked Ashby, but I've been on like a big Ashby deep dive, especially during the writing of this record. And the song in general kind of deals with misunderstandings and things that can happen when something is misunderstood. And just sort of being misunderstood. And I found that so many of the characters in his films are often tragically misunderstood people. Mm-hmm. So when there's in the bridge of the song, I say, a misguided Ashby catastrophe, not exactly something you plan to be. You got to handle it gracefully. So I wrote that. It just kind of came out of me. And I was like, I like that. It's, I felt good about it. The song was originally going to be called Course Correct Me, which is like a line that I say in the chorus. But then when we got down to the moment of like, I have to name this song, I was like, I think I just want to name it Ashby because of what I just described, like the opening someone up to like maybe finding something like, why would they call it that? Who is that kind of a thing? And it's interesting too, because like if you go on like, if you have like a Fire Stick and you start to type in Ashby, the name doesn't even come up right away. Like it's not something that is like searched all that often, which is kind of surprising. Because, it's like you start to type in like Quentin Tarantino, it pops up immediately. It's like Scorsese, it pops up immediately. But So even that, like, I think it just kind of showed to me that he is still very much an underdog, even though he had an incredible run of films. So again, I just hope it's an opportunity for people to discover him and maybe find a new favorite movie.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Hal Ashby actually died at the age of 59 from pancreatic cancer. If he had one more film to make, what do you think he would have made it about?
Oh, that's an interesting question. His last run of movies were not so hot. And I don't know if it was, I've only watched one. I've been meaning to kind of like get them all under my belt, but I just very recently watched 8 Million Ways to Die. I don't know if any of you
I
have ever
haven't seen
seen it. Because I watched it because Jeff Bridges is the lead in it. And I watched an interview where he was talking so lovingly about Hal Ashby. But it was a classic Hollywood story of like, he had been, under the influence quite a lot in the 80s. And the studio basically took the movie away from him and just made it kind of a chopped up mess. It's kind of like a crime movie. It doesn't really feel really like one of his things, but the Jeff Bridges character in it is a struggling alcoholic. And when Hal approached him for the movie, he was like, that's what I want to kind of like focus on this movie, like to have that part be the story. And that feels like Hal Ashby. Whereas like, it was also just like kind of like a silly kidnapping crime movie.
Okay.
It's kind of like After Hours, but through way more of a very like 80s cocaine action movie filter,
Funny.
Yeah.
So do you think in an ideal world, he would have maybe honed in on that story?
Okay, so I totally realized I didn't even answer your question. I was just talking about his 80s, so I apologize for that. I would like to hope that if this is like the thing that he knows is going to maybe be his last film, he would be able to get the love and budget he deserved to like make something that he would love to make.
Yeah.
Because he makes these really sweet stories about, again, tragic figures. What's like a good type of, like, I feel like he could have made a really sweet movie about like some like a hospice center. Like that seems like something that he would have been really touching and beautiful at.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. This is a question we ask every guest that comes on the show. Sometimes it stumps people. I think it's pretty fun. If you were to pick a film that describes your life right now, what would it be?
Wow. Okay. Oh boy. It's funny because all I'm doing is thinking about like, what is my life right now?
Yeah.
I have one I want to say, which is probably pretty obvious, but also it's sort of with 2024 eyes, it has aged like milk in a lot of ways, but I still would say High Fidelity because
I love High Fidelity.
I do too. It's funny when I feel like, because I used to work at a record store, it was my first job out of high school. And I watched that movie very lovingly. Like, I'm just like that guy.
Yeah.
And then
he's so problematic.
Yeah. You get older and you're like, that guy's kind of a shit. He's not so hot.
Yeah.
And he's pretty up his own ass. But
so true.
Yeah. But as someone who is currently going through some relationship stuff and also back working at a record store part-time.
Sick.
It's all coming back. It's all full circle again.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a cool answer. In that movie, it's like the soundtrack's so good. I associate that movie with a lot of good times because it's one of the few movies that I've rewatched a few times.
Yeah.
And I still hold it near and dear.
Oh, there's so many great parts and so many amazingly hilarious performances. Like, Jack Black is like going so hard in it, and he's like the perfect dickhead record store employee.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of great stuff in that movie. Like, even though there's some harder to watch things where you're like, oh man, come on, this is tough.
So true.
Yeah.
What sparked your love for film? Is it something you grew up with? Did you fall into loving films later in life?
I think I always loved them. I was a latchkey kid, raised by a single mom who worked late hours. So I was never policed on what I was watching.
Yeah.
And all my friends were all collectively bad influences on each other. And we were all latchkey kids. We're from Burbank. So if anyone knows anything about Burbank, California, it's a media city town. So if you're from there, chances are your folks or whomever you're raised with likely works in the industry, and probably not a glamorous job, probably some demanding job where they're never home and stressed out and just want to go to bed. So because of that, all of us were just like, we all got our hands on, Alien movies and Terminator movies and all those when you're like 11, 10 years old. So that's where me and all my friends kind of like started out. And then I remember finding Reservoir Dogs really early on, and then finding, like falling in love with Steve Buscemi, and then wanting to watch anything that he was in, which led me to so many other movies that were independent, great films. And I think that's kind of just where it all started. And I was just talking to a friend about this recently, but he was asking about if I ever watch, if I grew up watching like Siskel and Ebert or reading any film criticism or anything like that. And I was like, no, I never did. I was always such a music person. But for me, film is and continues to be sort of my reprieve from music, because music is so time consuming and so much a part of my life that if I can just find 2 hours in a day to just like put that away and just sit on my couch or I go to the theater, I go to the movie by myself constantly, like at least 2 or 3 times a week. It's like 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, well, I'm just going to drive 5 minutes down the street to the AMC and I guess just go watch something.
Fun.
Even if
I'll
it's
see
bad.
you there.
Yeah. Do you do the same?
Yeah, I love AMC.
Yeah.
And a solo movie is everything.
I'm telling you, which, do you have a preference? AMC
I go to the one in Burbank.
I mean, there's 3.
Is it 16? What's the one we go to? 16.
The big one?
Yeah.
I got a soft spot for the 6, the one around the other side where the in and out is. Because the thing about the 6 is that it's downstairs, so there's no reception in there.
Oh, that's cool.
So no one's phones work in there. So that's like one slight deterrent for someone being a piece of shit.
That is so smart. I'm gonna go to that one now. I think I've just been going to the 16 out of like habit.
Well, it also has it has the IMAX, like whereas the 6.
Oh, maybe that's why. Yeah.
It's got the IMAX. It's got the Prime. It's got Dolby. It's got all of those things, which is like
I have my little parking ritual that I almost kind of always park in the same area.
It's convenient.
Yeah.
I totally get it, and I go there all the time too.
Yeah.
But if I see that there's something playing at the 6 that I feel like doesn't need to be on IMAX, if it's like a horror movie, something independent or whatever it is, I'm like, every theater in the 6 has the recliners, every one of them. So I'm like, you get the comfy seat, no reception.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Are you a A-list Stubs member?
Oh, to the day I die.
Yeah, you gotta be. It's the best deal.
It's the best deal. It really is. I would love to do the Alamo, and just because like they respect cinema so much and like they have the love and the care, they really put in the work. But I'm like, God, driving to downtown and dealing with the downtown of it all, it's too much.
Driving to because I used to live in San Francisco, and our Alamo Draft House is in the Mission, and I liked it because I would like go get dinner and a drink, and I just liked all the things near that or Alamo. But the one in LA, I just hate the location. Parking is so horrible.
Yeah, if they open an Alamo in like Glendale,
I would go regularly.
I would fucking
Yeah, they would get a ton of business.
So much business.
Yeah, that's smart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I read this actually moments before you walked in.
Okay.
Did you have a cameo in the Weird Al Yankovich movie?
I did.
Can you tell me about that?
I can. Very funny circumstance. So early on in my podcast, I interviewed Eric Appel, who's the director of that movie. My partner at the time worked at an ad agency that he was represented by for like commercials and such. And I had seen that he had directed a ton of TV, right? So I thought it'd be really fun because the whole point of my podcast is like, I interview artists of every kind about their first experiences and their art form that led them to where they are today. Can you imagine? I've said that a lot of times. It's the intro to the show. So with him, I was like, it'd be really fun to hear about Eric's first experiences, getting into directing, getting into working for TV and whatever else. And he has a super interesting story. I'm making this so much longer already than it needs to be, but basically like he got his start. Remember the Andy Milonakis show?
Yes.
That was his roommate in college.
Whoa.
And they developed and created that show together. That's how he started. So like right out the gate, that's an interesting story, right? So in the episode, he like walks me through what it was like to direct an episode of The Office, which I was like, that'll be fun for listeners to hear, So we hit it off and had a really great chat. And then maybe he was, time eludes me at this point, but like it was at some point in the future. I saw a news article, probably on Deadline or something like that, that was like Eric Appel set to direct Weird Al Yankovic biopic. I was like, fuck yeah, go Eric. That's so cool. And, you know, though we were acquaintances through there, like he's not someone I would text and say, congratulations. I just thought to myself, congratulations, Eric. About a week later, I get a text from him and he says, hey, are you available on these 2 days? Is your head still shaved? And I said, I can be available. And yes, my head is still shaved. And he was like, all right, check it out. So there's 2 scenes in this movie where Weird Al tries out for a punk band. And then later in the movie, we see the punk band play. He was like, I've already cast 2 comedians to be the other members of the band, but Al asked me specifically if I know anybody who actually looks like they play in a punk band or does actually play in a punk band, and wondering if you would do it. And I was like, I'm not going to say no to that opportunity. So that's what happened. And it was just a very surreal experience. The fake band is me, Jonah Ray, and Johnny Pemberton.
So funny.
Yeah.
You guys should get fake merch.
They printed it as like a, what do you call it? Like a wrap gift. There's
cool.
a fake, the band is called Skunk Barf.
Cool.
What's funny though, is all 3 of us just happen to have J names.
Oh,
Jeremy, Johnny,
yeah.
and Jonah. So we're credited as like Jeremy Barf, Johnny Barf. And the best is Jonah Barf actually sounds like a punk name. Like it sounds like a play on Joan of Arc.
Oh, I love that.
Jonah Barf, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a Pat Smear, like one of those like punk names.
I like that.
Yeah. So pretty smart. We realized that after, but
very cool.
It was very the scene where we play that was the first scene that was filmed. I think it was day 2 of filming. And it was the most surreal experience of my life because I've never done anything like this before. I am so like just right into the frying pan, just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So we show up and I'm the guitar player in the band. Jonah plays bass and sings. And we meet Weird Al, who's like, let me teach you the song. And I'm just like, so like, I can't believe this is happening right now. So Weird Al teaches us the song. We have we run through the song about 3 times. Every time it is drastically different. You know, like we don't know what we're doing. We've never played music together before. And we're rehearsing this in front of a venue full of people, of extras who are watching us do this in front of the camera crew, in front of whatever. And then once we learn the song, we then meet the stuntmen who I've also learned moments before that are going to fight us after we play the song, because the idea is that we play, the audience boos, hates us, throws stuff at us. Weird Al then comes up and plays I Love Rocky Road and the whole place loves him. Like it's one of those like silly biopic scenes or whatever. Also, I realize moments after hearing that I have to now coordinate with the stuntman that it's going to be Patton Oswalt that screams, "You guys suck."
That's funny.
Who I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is all just so fucking crazy to me right now. But it was a very surreal experience. It was terrifying and really, really fun. And I got to go to the Beyond Fest screening of it when they played it here, obviously for Beyond Fest. And I was probably the most nervous I've ever been, sitting in the theater being like, oh, am I going to look stupid? Am I going to look, is this going to be okay? And it was just so cool. So very honored to have had that experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I'm going to have to, because I have seen it.
Yeah.
When it first came out, I need to do a rewatch now that I know you.
Sure. So the first scene that I'm in, or whatever's moments before the live scene, which is just like Weird Al playing a Ramones song on the accordion in terms for like trying out to be in the band. And Johnny Pemberton tells him no, while me and Jonah Ray just give him a look like, what are you doing? Or whatever. But yeah, very, very cool.
Okay, now we're going to get into a section that is just kind of general getting to know your movie taste, so the listener gets a feel for you. What is your favorite genre of film?
You know, I want to just be the guy who says horror, but it's really probably not, because when I look through my Letterboxd, I'm like, I'm a harsh critic on horror, because I think I love it so much. Do you write
reviews every time?
I don't.
I don't.
I don't either. Yeah, it's too much work. I think I've only written one sentence of a review on Letterboxd once, which was for the what do you call it? Violent Nature.
Oh. That's
the only review that I've written, which I think I just said Last Days of the 13th.
I haven't seen it.
It's just, the Gus Van Sant movie Last Days, where it's just following the Kurt Cobain through the forest from behind the entire time. So it just felt like that. But probably drama, to be honest with you, because I think drama is just like it's such a open category, because like dramedies are incredible, like horror dramas are incredible, and I think that I get the most from that, from just kind of that in general. I love comedies, but comedies can be tough because if a comedy isn't working, it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, whereas like if a horror movie isn't working, you can still have fun with it because there might be some good kills or just maybe a good set piece that's fun or something like that. But
also with horror now, it's very visually stunning. A lot of
Sure,
horror now,
yeah.
I feel like.
yeah, so probably dramas.
Who are some of your favorite filmmakers, and can you tell the audience about your leg tattoos?
Sure. So Joel and Ethan Cohen are my all-time. And moments before we started recording, I showed off my right leg, which is just chock full of Cohen brother film references. I have tattoos. Okay, I
How
have
many?
tattoos for Raising Arizona, Blood Simple, Miller's Crossing, The Big Lebowski, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, A Serious Man, Hail Caesar. I think that's it.
So impressive.
And I haven't done, like, there's a few obvious ones that I haven't done yet, just because I haven't had the right thing pop in my head what I want. Like, I haven't done a Fargo
Yeah, I was about
yet,
to say Fargo.
and I haven't done No Country for Old Men yet.
Yeah.
And I have True Grit. I recently got a True Grit one. But so those are my damn guys. I had one friend who hit me up once and asked me to send him a photo of some of them, and I was like, "What's up?" And he's like, "I'm going to a party later that one of them is going to be at." And I was like, "You have to tell me if you show." But also at the same time, watching those guys in interviews, I know for a fact they are not going to be impressed. Like, they don't seem like they would be they'd just be like, interesting. But
Whatever.
yeah, no, it's fine. I love them. But then other filmmakers, like for modern people, I love, P.T. Anderson. I a big fan of him. Some classic people I love, like I love Friedkin. I love De Palma, Cassavetes.
All the good ones.
Yeah, all those usual suspects.
Are there any films that are in theaters currently or going to come out next year that you're looking forward to seeing that come top of mind?
I go to a lot of those like test screenings. I go to a lot of those test screenings. And you're supposed to not say that you or not give an opinion on stuff. So I don't know how much I should say, but I've seen Nosferatu and it's fucking sick.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see that again.
Cool.
So I think I think if it's complimentary, I probably shouldn't get in trouble, right? So
He saw it too.
you saw it? Yeah. I had a great time. Yeah. So maybe for the sake of not getting in trouble, I'll just say I'm excited to see Nosferatu again.
Amazing.
And for current stuff, I was very allergic to the Speak No Evil remake because I really was happy with that original.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was great. And then when they put up the trailer for this one and they just like gave away everything that happens in the original, I was so sad that happened. So I went into it with like a bit of a tude.
Dude.
But I went and I saw it, and I got to say it was better than I expected. I was entertained in
That's
a way.
fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this next section, we're doing a little bit of a music and film crossover. Do you think your taste in movie aligns with your taste in music? However you take that question.
I'm trying to think of ways that those can correlate. And I think it does, because I like a pretty wide range of music styles. But I don't love, like, I'm not a big like pop music guy, So like, I guess if I'm gonna equate that to like film, like I have a pretty wide range of like types of movies that I like, but a lot of like kind of, not to be a jerk, but like brainless popcorn movies that like don't say anything, I'm not that interested in.
Yeah, valid.
So that's kind of, I think.
Yeah. Valid crossover. Are there any film soundtracks that influence your music taste or stuck with you?
Oh, I'm a huge soundtrack person. I'm actually wearing like a totally nerdy.
What do we have
shirt.
here?
They printed these at Vorace Sarabande, which is like the label that like put out like all the early like horror soundtracks
Oh,
and stuff like
sick.
that. Like anytime you come across like an original horror soundtrack, like their logos in the top left corner.
Cool.
So as I'm like at record stores and I'm in a soundtrack section, I'm always like looking for that little square. But they did
Oh,
like
that's good to know.
they did like the original pressings of like Evil Dead 2, Maniac, like there's a Raising Arizona Blood Simple split. It's like both soundtracks, like side A and side B, which
Oh,
is super
funny.
interesting. Reanimator, like honestly, like all of the awesome horror soundtracks. And then, but whatever. So they recently rebranded and like made this shirt, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna buy that.
Yeah.
It's like
You're
printed,
the target audience.
it's like it was like printed on comfort colors. I was like, someone knows what's happening here. Like someone knows on the inside like what they're doing here. So anyway, I love horror. Like probably soundtracks are the thing that I get in the most trouble with.
Yeah.
We were talking about House, Japanese film.
Yeah.
We got here when my band was on tour last summer. We were in Europe, and when we were in Stockholm, I went to a record shop, and I found like the Japanese press of the House soundtrack that still had like the
So
Obi strip on the
cool.
left side, and I was just like, this is the coolest find, and it was way more reasonably priced than I was expecting it to be. But it's very dangerous. Like, I don't know if you've been to Atomic Records in Burbank, but their soundtrack section, especially the wall stuff, like around the soundtracks, is so dangerous. Like, especially if you just start collecting, because they have most of like the ones you're gonna want. Like there's always The Thing on the wall, which is like a classic, perfect horror soundtrack.
I'm wearing The Thing shorts right now.
Are you?
Yeah.
I mean, like it's a perfect soundtrack. And then yeah, it's like The Thing, Rosemary's Baby, The Shining.
You know what's so funny? I listen to movie soundtracks often, especially if I want something more like no lyrics. Like I listen to very honestly
Background music.
Yeah, background music, more dramas. I would say I
Yeah.
listen to, like, if I'm feeling really dramatic, I'll listen to like If Beale Street Could Talk, or I listen to Call Me by Your Name or something like
Yeah.
that. Where was I going with this? It never dawned on me though to get vinyl for soundtracks.
Oh,
Because I have vinyl at home, but I've never once done the movies meets music. I have to
Yeah.
do that.
It's a dangerous game.
Wow. My mind is
It's-
open. It seems
yeah.
so obvious now, but
Yeah.
that's so smart.
Go to, and that's the other thing. It's like you'll find like pressings or
I
like
feel dumb. I never even thought to
you'll
do
find
that.
records of like movies that you love, and you're just like, I can't even remember if I like the soundtrack to this, but I want to have it just
Yeah.
because of the cover or
Yeah.
whatever. Like even like silly 80s action movies that they
Yeah.
definitely pressed vinyl for. Like I've been like, well, it's on the same label that I'm the one I'm talking about. Like I'm like, why am I buying like First Blood 2 or like Invasion USA, this like Chuck Norris movie? I'm like, why am I buying this on vinyl? But I was like, well, because
Chuck Norris.
it looks sick. And
Yeah, you need it.
Exactly.
It's calling your
Exactly.
name. Have you ever been interested in collaborating your world of music with film, either having one of your songs in a movie soundtrack or working on a soundtrack specifically for a film?
I mean, that'd be a dream. I would love to do that. You know, it's cool to see so many artists, musicians that is like kind of go into that world a little bit more. I'm hearing that more and more. Like the amount of friends are like, oh, I'm getting hit up to, I might be able to score the soundtrack or something like that. It just seems like a really fun thing to do. I would absolutely be into doing it. I don't know what capacity I could theoretically do it in,
Yeah.
but whatever that could be would be super fun. Yeah.
So for anyone listening, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Are there any films or directors whose visual style you find inspiring or similar to the aesthetic you aim for in your band's imagery?
Wow.
Was that really long worded?
I like the question though.
Because I'm sure you have some sort of vision of your band's aura,
Yeah.
either stage presence or the branding for your band. And do you see that at all in any films?
We would use that
Barbie.
More, like no, we would use that probably more in the reverse, right?
Okay.
Like if there's certain people that so our guitar player Nick, he's graphic design artist, he's brilliant. He's done everything for our band since the get-go. And so when he and I start working on album art stuff, like he makes everything, but it's a collaborative process in the sense of like he's interpreting words that I've written, themes, etc. And he'll often storyboard the shit out of it and like and put up images and stuff like that that he's pulled from things or things that I've said. So that often is in there. But then we've had music videos that we absolutely reference. Like, I mean, the one that we made for Hal Ashby, there are like actual, like us doing little Easter eggs of Hal Ashby stuff.
Cool.
Like we have two friends walk by in a movie theater in sailor outfits for the last detail. Like it's very subtle, but it's there. Or like we rented a hearse and I drove a hearse around like, and those things handle terribly. Which is funny because in the movie, Maude's like, these things handle amazing. Like these things they handle well. And I'm just like, you are lying, lady. But anyway, so like we got to use that as a bit of an influence. And then on our previous record, we have a song called Limelight. And there was like a lot of haze and a lot of neon lights and stuff. So like a Nicholas Refn sort of go for that, like sort of that aesthetic was in there a little bit, sort of like the dark noir-y, but also shining neons and things like that. So
cool. Okay, so now we're going to get into your movie pick for this episode. You decided on Harold and Maude, which makes sense, obviously, based off of our conversation. Why did you want to talk about this movie? Do you have a specific memory from your first time watching it?
I just remember being so moved by it the first time I watched it. I think it's just such a beautiful portrait of someone just as, bare bones as it sounds to say, but like finding the joy in life and however that comes to you. And it's just such a beautiful example of it. And it's done in such a like, quote unquote, provocative ways, because like, I think to someone who's maybe not used to that style of a film or something like that would just go like someone would, if you explain the plot to someone who's just like on the street to be like, hey, like a young kid falls in love with this older, like with a 79-year-old woman, they're going to think that that's the cusp of the film. And like, that's where all the drama is going to be, but it's not, it's just like, it's in there, of course, but like, it's more so like joy can find you in all these different sort of ways. And like someone to teach you about the beauty in life, it can come from anywhere. And there's something just so amazing about that.
I had seen it obviously before, and then I did a rewatch just today. So it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
And I wrote a list of different characters from movies that remind me of Harold. Harold's pretty morbid, kind of misunderstood. So I'm going to list some characters and you tell me if another one comes to mind. So first, obviously, Winona Ryder often plays unconventional characters. So I was thinking Lydia Dietz in Beetlejuice, Veronica Sawyer in The Heathers, also Edward Scissorhands in here, Wednesday Addams, Donnie Darko, which I talk about a disgusting amount. Igby, played by Kieran Culkin in Igby Goes Down, Juno, Paul Dano in Little Miss Sunshine, then, Cameron Fry, the character in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like, I think that one's kind of on the nose, the fascination with death.
Totally.
Charlie Graham is the sister in Hereditary. If you ever saw Hereditary, the younger sister. And then my last one is Ezra Miller, that actor who's in We Need to Talk About Kevin, which we were just talking about on our podcast the other day. Someone put that on their film list. But all these characters came to mind when I thought of Harold, who is someone who's a bit of an oddball, but he's the crutch of the movie. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that main character being misunderstood. Do you have any other character? I know I list like a million.
God, yeah, I'm like, as you're going through that list, I was like, wow, yeah.
Well, I was definitely doing some research. But.
Yeah. I mean, but he really did. It really did like set this archetype for like the death of. Oh, I got one.
Okay.
I got one. I don't know how this just popped in my head. What about Bob?
I actually don't even know this.
The Bill Murray movie. The boy in it. He's obsessed with death in it, and he can't.
I've actually never seen this, but I'm going to watch it immediately.
It's a childhood movie. It's an incredible backstory because Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss hated each other on the film of the movie. Like Richard Dreyfuss hated capital H Bill Murray in this movie. And it really plays into their performances. Like are the characters supposed to like each other? Bill Murray is a patient of his and Richard Dreyfuss is a very self-centered, narcissistic therapist.
Got it.
And basically, like, Richard Dreyfuss goes on vacation and Bob is like, I need your help still. So he follows him on vacation
That's
and
funny.
basically just annoys his family. And the family falls in love with Bob while driving Richard Dreyfuss insane.
This sounds great.
It's a perfect plot. But Richard Dreyfuss's son wears all black.
I love
He's
it.
death obsessed. And Bob teaches him about the joys in life.
Oh, cute.
So it's
That
very kind of similar to Harold and Maude.
I
in
bet
that
it was
way.
a reference when
I'll
they
bet
were.
it was.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
bet
cool.
it was.
Okay, so their relationship is quite unconventional, obviously, with the age difference and just how they view the world. Are you more of a Harold or a Maude?
Oh, I'm a Harold for sure.
I think I'm a Maude for sure.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm like annoyingly optimistic.
Oh, okay. Well, that's wonderful, and I'm sure you've brought a lot of people joy in your way in your walking through this life. But no, the humor, the dark humor, I love.
I wish I was Harold. Harold's cooler.
It's a grass is always greener situation.
Harold's so much cooler, but I am Maude.
all of the suicide attempt scenes are
So funny.
and so dark, and I just love how much it plays with reality.
It
You know,
is
'cause,
such a funny movie.
like, the scene when the girl comes to meet him and he just sets himself on fire and then just shows up like right next to her after she's horrified. It's like, I don't know in what reality this could have possibly happened, but it's so goddamn funny. And the look he gives the camera when she runs out of the room, unbelievable.
Such a good deadpan.
Yeah.
Oh, this is another thought I had on the rewatch today. I don't know if this tie-in will translate well, but the mutual desire for Harold and Maude both to go to funerals where they don't know anyone there just for like the fascination and the enjoyment of it reminds me a lot of Fight Club and the two leads going to AA or whatever support groups just even though they don't need the help, which I thought was interesting. Just the notion of the group that you're going to says a lot about your internal struggle, even though you're not supposed to be there.
Right. And thinking about that as a setup too, and in the way, because when you watch the movie and you first see Maude at the cemetery, listening to the funeral, the funeral going on, the service. I feel like there's two things you can lift from a service like that. One side, which is the side that Harold is probably interested in, which is like the morbid side of it, right? But I can imagine that Maude is listening for the sweet side of it, to hear about the way that they're talking about this person in a positive way and sort of the celebration aspect.
Mhm.
So it is interesting that, like, however you view a funeral, it can, people call it the celebration of life or whatever, but it's obviously a deeply sad thing. So there is that sort of interesting Venn diagram of the meetings of those two things, which is kind of representative of the two characters.
Yeah, that is so cool. Do you have a favorite scene that comes to mind? I know you were just saying the fire scene.
Oh, that's so hard.
I have one. I can go first while you brainstorm if you want.
Please.
Unless you have one.
No, please.
Because I rewatched today, I wrote a quote down because I kept thinking Maude, like, she has so many great lines in this movie. So I wrote down two that I liked. One, she says, "I'm merely acting as a general reminder here today, gone tomorrow, so don't get attached to things. Now, with that in mind, I'm not against collecting stuff. I've collected quite a lot of stuff in my time. This is all memorabilia, but it's incidental, not integral, if you know what I mean." And I like kind of that oxymoron because she's definitely,
Right.
but none of it means anything to her.
Right.
And I love her sentiment because everything she's so righteous about and serious about, but it's all also meaningless and we don't need to hold on to anything.
Right.
So I just like the dichotomy of her. And then another scene, she's saying, I used to break, actually, this might even be the same scene. She says, "I used to break into pet shops to liberate canaries, but I decided that was an idea way before its time. Zoos are full, prisons are overflowing. Oh my, how the world still dearly loves a cage." And I just thought that was really prophetic.
Absolutely. And the way in which she delivers some of those lines as if like
It just rolls off the tongue.
There are actors that would be like, this is my Oscar scene.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like give this, but she's such a
Yeah.
It's everything she says feels so frivolous, but
Yeah.
it's like so poignant and beautiful.
Yeah.
The scene when they're talking about sunflowers,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know that I can't recite it, but there's when Harold's like, I would be one of these because they all look the same.
Yeah.
And then she explains that they're all different and unique in their own sort of way. And like the way in which she describes that is like so beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
I love that scene. And it also right after zooms out and it shows the what's that called? Not a all this at a funeral, all the stones.
That's tombstones?
Graveyard.
Yeah, graveyard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
It's okay. It's cemetery.
It zooms out and shows the cemetery, and it's such a cool shot.
Absolutely.
And they look so small. So this film, when it initially came out, it kind of was a dud.
Mhm.
But over time, it started to resonate with people and become a cult classic. Why do you think that is?
It's a hard, I mean, right when we started talking about it, it's like, it's a hard elevator pitch.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, do you want to go watch the morbid teenager fall in love with the 79-year-old full of love and joy person? You know, it's like, how do you market this movie? And the opening 10 minutes of this movie, very hard to market. Being
Yeah.
like, oh, here's a kid trying to kill himself for the first, and it's like super dark humor, It's like not the same in any way, shape, or form, but in the sense of like you are actively trying to turn your audience off.
Yeah.
Anyone who takes it seriously, who like is maybe a very serious film, but it's like reminds me of like Swiss Army Man. Like the first 10 minutes of Swiss Army Man. Like if you're not down to watch a guy get ridden powered by his farts, like
so funny.
you're not in for that movie,
Yeah.
So in that sort of a way, it's like you have to be willing to go there with this movie. And then when you do, you're rewarded. Same with Swiss Army Man.
And also that was a great comparison.
Yeah.
Also, even the opening scene, I'm just now remembering the soundtrack with Cat Stevens.
Oh,
So
beautiful,
cool.
Beautiful.
And then there's so many good, like, I guess needle drop kind of is the right word, but just the timing of the music in it. Like at the beginning scene with him hanging himself, and the music is just timed so perfectly for you to laugh.
Yes.
It's so good.
And the amount that Cat Stevens gets used in the movie too.
Yeah.
Like it's all the time. It reminds me of McCabe and Mrs. Miller with like Leonard Cohen and in the Altman movie. Cause it's like, though it's only a handful, like maybe like 3 Leonard Cohen songs, like they're always going on. They're always being played. And as someone who lives and breathes and loves Leonard Cohen, like I love it, but it's like, it's crazy how much you put this in the movie. And that's how, and it's funny. I don't know if you listened to Cat or you read anything about Cat Stevens with this movie, but like he made the music for it. And the songs that are in the movie are all demos. He wanted to like go in and do them all professionally, but Hal Ashby was like, no, I love these, and just used all the demos. And so like, even to this day, Cat Stevens was like, man, that's nice and all, but I really wish you would have let me like
How funny.
do the real full ways of these songs that I had envisioned. But
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he ended up using all like the rough demos for all of those songs.
It's also funny that we're talking about Leonard Cohen because I was with some friends the other day. They're all musicians or to work in the music world. They're not all musicians. Anyways, they thought it was so strange because I do most things listening to a podcast or a documentary or a movie critique. I think just because the podcast now. And they listen to music constantly. And I was saying, I haven't listened to one song today. And they thought that was insane. And they were like, what'd you listen to at the gym? And I was like, I think I listened to a documentary. And they're like, that's psychotic. And then they asked me what the last song I saved on Spotify was. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I like music, but I don't know. And I looked and it was a Leonard Cohen song.
What song?
Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye. That was my last saved song. And this conversation just happened 2 days ago. So
that song is, that's like a top 5 for me.
Maybe we'll edit it into the background right now.
There you go. Yeah.
My final question for Harold and Maude. If you had to do a double feature and watch a movie either before or after, does one come to mind that would pair nicely?
I don't want to be too obvious and just say like The Last Detail or something like that.
I wrote The Graduate.
Okay. I mean, tonally for sure. I can see that. Not to be cheap here, but I've been really mulling over this what about Bob thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to say what about Bob.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm very proud of myself for putting that together. I'll be honest with you. So I
Cool.
want to just give that another spotlight.
I really hope that someone listens to the episode and gives you an applaud for that. I'm sure someone will.
Yeah.
We'll get a show.
That'll be my life's work, to be honest with you. Forget about the band.
So I have a little game called Find the Connection. I am going to name 2 seemingly unrelated films, and you have to find some sort of common connection, whether that's like a theme in the movie or literally whatever comes to mind. I don't think they're any of the same directors. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Actor, maybe. Okay, first we have Die Hard and The Breakfast Club.
Oh, being held hostage.
Yeah, Confined Spaces.
Confined Spaces, yeah.
Okay, Fight Club and The Truman Show.
I don't want to just say because there's not really surveillance in Fight Club.
Do you want me to tell you what I
Please.
wrote down?
What'd you write down?
Questioning reality versus illusion.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Because
sure.
the Truman Show, he's like,
Yeah,
is this
yeah,
real
yeah.
life? Is everyone watching me? And then Fight Club, obviously, like one of the guys, you know, I don't know
Of course.
if anyone hasn't seen it.
Who hasn't spoiled Fight Club? Yeah, that's smart. I like that. You know, it's funny. I've only watched the Truman Show for the first time in my life, like maybe over the pandemic.
Really?
Yeah, it was one of these. It was a blind spot for me. I
I have a
somehow
million
never
blind
saw
spots. What do you think?
it. I think I had known all the beats of it
Yeah.
already, so it almost felt like I had seen it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Your tone of voice. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah. It was,
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Her and Lost in Translation.
I mean, I would think that's Scarlett Johansson during the voice, and also she's in
Oh,
Lost in
yeah.
Translation.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
You know what? I
That's
actually.
probably not what you were going for, though. I would probably say a toxic relationship or something like that. I don't know.
And I'm also just now, this wasn't on purpose, but I'm just realizing it's Spike Jonze did her. I've talked about this on our Instagram. Spike Jonze did her. Sofia Coppola did Lost in
Yeah.
Translation, and they did them about each other.
Right. That's right.
So
That's right.
another tie-in. But yeah, Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Matrix and Blade Runner.
Ahead of their time, future movies.
Yeah,
you know, I
AI.
guess. Yeah.
Fargo and No Country for Old Men.
I mean, a pursuit for money. Money being the crux of crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have 6 movies. I'm going to say the name of the movie, and you just give me one word to describe it, in your opinion.
Okay.
So just one word answers. First, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I'll just say terrifying.
No Country for Old Men.
Perfect.
There Will Be Blood.
Immaculate.
Old Boy.
Fucked.
Zodiac.
Iconic.
Challengers.
Sexy.
Amazing. Okay, that's the end of that.
You know, I'll just say that like movies are so important to me, and like it's any opportunity to like do this and talk about movies is I'm going to jump at it. So
Cool.
I'm thankful for the opportunity. Like I'm often having to only talk about music stuff or like very specific stuff about records or bands or whatever it is. So yeah, this has been a joy. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I had so much fun having you on the show. Do you have anything to plug? Obviously, your new album coming out in October.
Yeah. So yeah, we have my band Touché Amoré. We have an album coming out October 11th, and we have a full U.S. tour in support of it, which starts October 9th here in Los Angeles and ends in Boston on November 3rd. But that's the goings-ons. And yeah, I have a weekly podcast called The First Ever Podcast. And when I guess talking to film stuff, I've had the opportunity to speak to quite a few directors now. I've had like Riley Stearns on, Eric Appel, as mentioned, Daniel Goldhaber, and Jim Cummings. So yeah, every now and again I get to do that, which is a lot of fun. And that's it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun.
I did.
And now it's time to get lost.
Good evening.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. To stay in touch, follow our Instagram page at It's Intermission Time and share with your friends. As always, Intermission is produced by Jazeel Chu and Olivia Deaton, and of course, hosted by yours truly, Megan Braun. This episode is brought to you by The Synagogue.